All right, we're going to do another tomato review today. It's going to be on this tomato right here, and this is called the Green Krim Cherry Tomato. So this is a real interesting variety, guys. This is like the greenest of green tomatoes I've ever seen. I've never seen a tomato this green. I mean, green meaning that it never really changes color. It stays green, and to the point where it's fully ripe is still green. It doesn't really get any, I mean, these tomatoes you're looking at now are fully ripe tomatoes. Normally with green tomatoes you get a little bit of yellowing, which these do a little bit once in a while, but you can't depend on this. See, like this one's gotten slightly yellow on the bottom. That's the only this one here was the only reason why I was. I'll tell you what happened. I'm picking all the tomatoes out of my garden. I'm slowly picking them out. I'm looking for the red, the yellow, the orange, and I'm picking them all the tomatoes out of there. And I'm not even picking this because I'm not looking for green. I'm looking for, you know, red, yellow, orange, and that kind of a thing. So I'm not even looking for this tomato. And next thing I know, there's tomatoes that are rotting on the plant. And I'm happen to be looking through the vines. I'm like, why is that tomato, they're rotting green on the plant? What, did it get sick or something? And so as I examined it a little closer, and I looked down at the name, and it says the Green Krim Cherry Tomato. And I was like, that's got to be what it is. It's a green tomato, and I just didn't realize they were ripe. And of course, that's what it was. So these tomatoes are like overripe by a mile, and that's because they've been sitting on there for so long. They're literally started melting inside the skin and turning into like a sack, and then breaking down the full because they were just rotting on the plant. I didn't know they were actually ripe. So I started picking them off, and I managed to save a few of them. There's more on there that are green, but I really got to keep my eye on it now because there's no real way to tell when these are ripe. And the only thing you can do is when you go to the tomato, you can kind of squeeze it a little bit like that, and it kind of feels like a pimple. It's very soft. That's how you know it's ripe. If it's hard like a regular hard green unripe tomato, then it's not ripe. But as soon as you start to squeeze it a little, it's soft. That's how you know. That's really the only way to know, because you can't just look at it and say, oh, that's ripe. There's no way to know. You would never know. You have to squeeze the tomato a little. So let's give you a look at these tomatoes. Yeah, under the light you could kind of see a little bit of yellowing, but when you're looking around in your plants out in the garden, you're not going to see that tiny little bit of slightly yellow. All you see is that, you know. And this is under bright light. You got to remember, it's not bright underneath the canopy of your tomato plants. You can barely see that, you know, any color on there at all. It's just green like this. So that's what it looks like. That one slightly got a little bit of color, but I'll pick one here that's slightly, you know. Don't forget too, these also been sitting out on my table in the light, so the light may have something to do with it picking up some color. You can see there's the top of one. This one's perfectly ripe, but look at the top of that. You can see how green that is, right? Same thing with the bottom of it, because I cut it in half. It's perfectly green. It's nowhere's. So these tomatoes are pretty much cherry-sized tomatoes. You're normally going to get, you know, cherry-sized tomatoes like this from it. But you can get a couple on there that get a little bit bigger than that. Like this one kind of got like this size. And so you might get a couple that are a little bigger, but in general, they are cherry tomatoes. So the weight may range in size, and we'll go and check the weight for you. And let's see what the weight is. We'll weigh that one first. Weight's about 0.6 of an ounce on that one. Here's the big one. Okay, that one's about 1.1 ounces. And another regular size cherry, about 0.4. So you can see they can range anywhere between like 0.2 or 3 all the way up to over an ounce. Just to give you an idea of the weight, so you know what you're dealing with here. All right, so let's put this on the bricks and see what it says. Let's see what the bricks has to say about this. It looks like it might be a sweet tomato. It's a little low. About 4 1/4 on the bricks. Ain't too pleased with that. But it's ripe as anything. That I can tell you. This thing is absolutely ripe. All right, so we got our we know what we want to say. So we got the numbers. Let's break out the numbers, and let's see what the numbers have to say about the Green Krim. The Green Hornet. Remember the Green Hornet with Bruce Lee? Alright, let's go over the tomatoes. Let's go over the flavor profile here and see what we have to say about it now. Okay. Alright, well, let's start with the sweetness. The sweetness on the smaller ones wasn't actually very good. I don't think I tasted much sweetness at all. The smaller ones seemed like there would be like around a 15 on the sweetness. It was very bland, almost tasteless. But when I ate the bigger one that was kind of ripe with a little bit of yellowness on the bottom, that sweetness would go up to probably an 18 to 20 on the sweetness. It was still kind of on a below average, but I did taste the sweetness in there and it was pretty good. So it wasn't bad, but it was a little on the low side. Tangy part was actually pretty good. The tangy part was probably, if I were to give that a number, it was a little above average. I'd probably put that about 27 on the tangy, so it was a little higher. Average would have been 25, so we're looking at 27. It was a little higher on that number. Tomato flavor was actually pretty strong. Not very strong, but it was there and it was consistent. I would say the tomato flavor, we're talking about intensity of it. Again, no, we're not talking about how good the tomato flavor was. We're talking about the intensity of the tomato flavor. The intensity of the tomato flavor, in this case, I'm going to put at about 6 on the intensity. From 0 to 10, I'm going to put this at about 6, 10 being the highest. And it was a little above average, so that's why we're going with a 6. It tasted like it was somewhere around there. The moisture was off the chart because it was these tomatoes have been sitting on there way too long, and they were basically turning the liquid on the plant. So these tomatoes are well ripened, way beyond where I should have left them. But again, I didn't know they were ripe. They stay perfectly green all the way to the point where they rot. You know, it's one of those tomatoes. So that's kind of a downside to that. When you grow this tomato, grow it by itself and really keep your eye on the tomatoes. This isn't one that you're going to just ignore and look for the red color when you're ready to pick them. It don't work like that. You got to check these all the time. Moisture is going to be around an 8 because they were overripe. They were really, really juicy. I mean, it was good. The moisture delivered all the flavor package down to the back of your tongue, but it was just really wet and watery. So as soon as you got all that water out of it and you swallowed it, your mouth almost seemed dry afterwards. So all that water washed your mouth clean, and then there was nothing left to savor. So I kind of found that the moisture was a little high in that sense, definitely above the normal. Tarty and sour, the small ones seemed like they had a little bit of a tardiness to it, or a tangy, swangy, lemony type of tardiness. We're going to put a 2 on that tarty and sourness because I did pick that up on there, believe it or not. There was a type of tarty and tangy. Smaller tomatoes. The bigger tomato that I ate, that larger one towards the end, that one seemed like it didn't have as much tardiness, but there was definitely something there. I could still kind of taste the ascorbic acid on my lips a little bit. So it was a little tarty and tangy. It was like it just lit your tongue up like that, like an orange juice or a lemon juice type of an effect. So it did have that in there. So yeah, I might even go 2.5 on that one. It was a little bit higher. It was definitely noticeable. Undertones, yeah, these seem to have some kind of an undertone. At some point, the smaller ones had an undertone that was actually stronger than the tomato flavor, and that undertone kind of really invades your sinus cavities in the back of your throat immediately fast, and you got a very intense, strong aroma of this undertone, but then that kind of dissipates out, and then the tomato flavor settles into the back of your tongue. But there was definitely a strong sense of an undertone in there. I'm actually going to put the undertone on this one at about a 4. Because the bigger one didn't really have it, but the smaller tomatoes really had a strong undertone to it. It was almost off-putting a little bit, but then it dissipated quickly, and then the tomato flavor, you were able to really pick that up on the back of your on your tongue. But in the beginning part of it, that undertone really invaded your nasal cavity, really filled up your whole mouth with that undertone, and then dissipated relatively quickly. So we're going to give that kind of a high number. We're going to go 4. You could probably even say 3.5, but somewhere in that range. That's where the undertone was. Now, if it would have been over 5, that means that tomato would have tasted funky like you wouldn't believe. The undertone's stronger than the tomato flavor. If you get that, that's a real awkward type of number there. Texture was okay. I'm going to put that at about average. Again, these tomatoes were ripening on a plant forever, so the flesh inside was pretty soft. But yeah, to be honest with you, it held together pretty good, so you can chew it. It was just the skins were really kind of a lot stronger than the flesh was. So it didn't really break up. The flesh just melted in your mouth, and then you were left with a skin bag when you were done. So I don't like skin bags. So we were left with kind of a skin bag, and you got to spit that skin bag out. I don't even chew them. They're just nasty. Spit them out. So yeah, I'm going to go with average. You could probably even say, because of that skin bag, we'll probably say maybe even 4.5 on that one because of the skin. If it wasn't for the skin, I would have brought that number to 5, even 5.5. But that skin, no, that was annoying. Had to spit that thing out. It was like spitting out a piece of a balloon. Production's okay. We'll probably go even a little lower than average, only because I can't really tell how many tomatoes are on there, because there are a whole bunch of green tomatoes all over the place. I have to trace out every one. So I'm imagining it's probably going to be about an average production on the tomatoes, and probably go 5 on the production level of this tomato. Now, how do I rate this tomato from 1 being the best, 10 being the lowest? We'll go with I'll probably go with about a 4 on this. Unfortunately, it's going to be a little below average because of a lot of the other things that I said in the beginning. What did I say? 4? No, 1 is the highest, so we're going to go below 5. So we're going to go 6. I'm sorry, we're going to go 6 on the scale, from 1 being the highest, 10 being the lowest. It'd be 6, not a 4. I'm going to go with a 6 on it. It's a little bit below average, and the reason for that is because, I mean, there's just a lot of factors in this tomato that just turned me off. I mean, the undertone part was kind of a turn off. The tough skin that is like blowing up a balloon piece stuck on my tongue thing, I wasn't digging that too much. The undertones, the fact that the sweetness was just kind of low like that was just bland. And if you squeeze the seeds out, most of the tangy and sweet and tardy, the tangy and tardiness that was happening was all in the seeds. You remove those seeds, you got really a bland piece of tomato behind it. So I wasn't too thrilled about this combination between the sweet, the tangy, and the tomato flavor. It was just kind of, it wasn't working for me, to be honest with you. And what really threw me off was these undertones that were really prominent and then dissipated really quickly. I wasn't turned on by that at all. Maybe my review will change next year. I'll grow this green tomato out by itself somewhere, and just that way I can keep an eye on it and then pick them when they're kind of in between. I'll try them a couple of, but that greenness had like a funky kind of a tardiness, almost mouth puckering, tongue swelling type of tardiness to it. Like, not powerful, but it was there. There was definitely something that tingles your taste buds on the tip of your tongue from that. So yeah, at this point, it's not the greatest tomato in the world. It's a fun tomato to grow. I love growing green tomatoes, but this one has some weirdness to it, and so my rating's going to go to about a 6. You could probably even go maybe even 5.5, because we're going down in scale. 5, 6, 7. So we're going from a 5 to a 6. Maybe you could even say 5.5 to 6, somewhere in there. It's kind of in that range somewhere. I'm not going to even go. It's a little lower than average as far as like where I would rate it. So that's an unfortunate thing, but again, we'll grow this tomato out next year, and we'll see how we can improve this variety. Maybe it'll pick up and be really good. I don't know, but was not happening this year. All right, so that's it for this review. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave whatever information I know about the tomato. I'm going to put it in the description. I'll also put the information online on my website. And keep in mind, anytime I do any updating to the descriptions online, I don't always change the description in the YouTube video. So if you're watching this video, it's a year later, you're probably going to want to check the website and read the description there, because I may have updated it from there. Again, I don't always update the descriptions in the YouTube video. All right, and I'm also going to leave a link in the description below if you decide that you want to try buying the seed for yourself and give it a grow. Maybe you can adjust the soil in such a way and maybe get a little bit more luck than I will. And maybe you can get some great tasting tomatoes out of it. But as far as right now goes, my review is the way it stands. But the link will be in the description below. That will bring you over to the webpage where you can buy the seeds. All right, so that's it. That was my review for the Green Krim Cherry Tomato. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care.